Hello, hello, how's it going? It is October 1st, and tonight I am planning on starting Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. I thought it might be fun to vlog my experience reading this book because it's 700 pages long, so I feel like it would be interesting to see how my feelings might change about this book as I progress through it. And just because I thought I've never dedicated like an entire reading vlog before to a specific book. I've really never done like actual reading vlogs before, you know, but I just thought it might be fun to do with this one, and because this one is going to be Jacqueline and I's buddy read for the month of October, we're going to be trying to do like 200 pages a week, and then we're doing like a live show either on YouTube or on Instagram at the end of the month. I'm just so excited to read this, and now that it's October 1st, it's like perfect like spooky season out now, and I am just ready to be spooked. So I'm going to start this book now, and I will update you with thoughts as I go. So, the little prologue bit was kind of strange. Just finished the first 6 pages, and now we're on to part 1, which is today. This prologue took place 50 years in the past, and it was like about this creepy little boy that was like talking to some dead people, I guess. So now we're starting part 1. And like, do you see how small this font is? Like, it's incredibly small. Like, this book is gonna take me forever to read. I'm excited about it, so let's go. So, it's the next morning, and I just finished part 1, and look at how strange this part 1 ends. It has like 1 word per page for like many pages, and then we get to part 2. So, very interesting, kind of strange, and now I'm on page 51, I guess. So maybe that's why this book is 700 pages, because some pages do that? Weird, but okay, I'm here for it. We finally got to the first creepy scene with the imaginary friend at the end of part 1, so hopefully now things start to pick up. I've been reading a bit of this book this morning. I'm about 120 pages in. I'm on chapter 22, and I'm just like a smidge into part 3 of this book. I'm really enjoying this so far. Like, I will say the beginning was like a bit slow of a start. Like, I was like, okay, this doesn't even really feel horror. But then some really creepy stuff started happening towards the end of part 1, and then I was interested. And then I thought part 2 was pretty solid, and part 3 like literally just started, but I'm really enjoying this so far. It's honestly kind of giving me like Stephen King vibes, and because it's like Stephen Chbosky or Stephen King. I mean, like, this book is 700 pages long, and it's a horror novel. Like, it feels very Stephen King to me. And not only that, but just like the relationship and the friendship between the boys in this book also feels like very Stephen King to me. I think the writing style is kind of interesting, how you can tell when it's being told from the point of view of Christopher, who's this 7-year-old boy, and then the other parts that are told from the point of view of his mom. Like, it doesn't directly say that it's like changing point of view, but I like that you can tell just by the writing style when it's changing point of view. I feel like this is going to be the kind of book that I'm just going to fly through if it continues to stay this great. So yeah, but now I need to film this other booktube video real fast, and then I'm going out and meeting my mom, and then hopefully later tonight I can come back and read up to page 200 and be done for the week. It's still October 2nd. It's kind of later at night. I am on page 208 of Imaginary Friend. I kind of read over what I was supposed to read because we're doing this whole reading 200 pages a week thing like me and Jacqueline are. So I read a little bit past where I was supposed to, but it's getting really good now, and I'm actually finding it hard to put down. So like, I'm gonna do my best to try and stick to this whole 200 pages a week thing, but like, it's getting really interesting now. And I started to like tab moments that, like, the green moments are the ones that I thought were really like creepy and the ones that like gave me the chills, and so there's been a couple of green tabs in here now, and then the blue tabs I put for like interesting plot moments that I want to remember. Oh my gosh, there was like a hella good plot twist that was right around the 200 page mark that I was like, what? This book is starting to remind me a lot of Stranger Things, and it's also reminding me a lot of The Shining right now. really enjoying this, and like it does feel very Stephen King vibes in the sense that it reminds me of The Shining and Stranger Things, because I feel like Stranger Things is also very Stephen King inspired, and the suspense is building, and I'm feeling like right now, like I'm really loving this. Like I'm really hoping it goes in the direction that I think that it's going to go. I think that I've decided that I'm going to keep most of this vlog spoiler free. Like I'm just going to be giving you my reactions as I'm reading it, but then I think at the end of this vlog I will do some spoilery thoughts, so that if you want to know like what's going on in this book and you've either already read it or you don't think you're gonna read it, then you can like hear what's actually happening in this book, because it's fucking crazy wild. But for now, I'm gonna keep it spoiler free until I finish it, and then at the end of this vlog I'll include some spoilery stuff. I'm loving it, and the idea of not picking this book back up again until next week is making me kind of sad, and I just really want to read this, so we'll see when I pick this book up again. I'm so curious too, because Jacqueline is going to start it tomorrow, so I'm really curious to see if she's going to like this as much as I'm liking it. It's October 6th, and it's technically Sunday night, but I'm jumping back into Imaginary Friend because I was trying to read 2 books earlier today, and I could not get into either of them because I just kept thinking about this book and how I just want to read this book right now. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm still on page 208 because I haven't read anything since the last time I saw you. It's been a couple of days. I'm so ready to just dive right back into this, and I actually made sure I took some really good notes so that in case my brain forgets, because you know, I don't usually read 700-page books, so like I just want to make sure that I don't forget anything that's happening, and so I'm gonna read my notes and then we're gonna jump back in, and I'm excited about it. Like I really, this book is so good. I painted my nails black today, by the way, too, which is just very fitting for this mood. It's about noon today. It's October 7th. I have the day off of work today, so I'm planning on reading a good chunk of Imaginary Friend this afternoon. Last night I got to page 295, so I did read almost 100 pages last night, and this book is continuing to be very weird and creepy, and I'm just loving it so much. It's also like building this like really great mystery, and I'm like just trying to figure out like where this story is gonna go, and I'm just really excited about it that I'm like pretty much 300 pages into it and it hasn't started to bore me yet, which is good because this book is 700 pages long. I'm realizing that I'm wanting to read this book so bad that I don't really want to read anything else at the moment, which is good, I think, because that means I'm super invested and that I want to finish this 700-page book, which is like crazy because I never read long books like this, you know? I'm gonna go sit on my patio and read some more of this book and drink my Starbucks. It's like the perfect October day for this shit because it's like pouring rain and it's really looking like fall outside because the leaves are changing colors and shit. It's great. Oh my gosh. I just got to part 5 and part 4 was like the best freaking shit ever, and it was from page like 189 to 378, and now I'm at part 5 and I'm nervous to see what's to come because it just ended part 4 with like the biggest freaking plot twist crazy shit, and I'm just like, oh my god, what is gonna happen next? Like I'm so obsessed with this book. Oh my god. Okay, it's like 4. I'm getting ready to go out to dinner with my parents in a bit, but I've read some more. I am 440 pages into this book now. I was actually only planning on reading to page 400 this afternoon. Then I hit page 400 and I just could not stop reading it because it's just so good. And oh my gosh, dude, that plot twist around page like 370, like wherever the ending of part 4 ended and it went into part 5, like holy crap. Like his writing is just so freaking good. And it was so funny because earlier today me and Jacqueline were like talking about it because she's currently reading this as well and she's on like around page 200 right now, and she was saying how like we both kind of agreed that these characters, it follows from the point of view of Christopher, who's like 7 years old, you know, and all of his friends are also like 7 years old, but they kind of read closer to like maybe 11 or 12 or even like early teens. And I was like really like confused by that, but then now that I think about this story more, I feel like there is an explanation for it. So I'm gonna like have to message her about that, because I just thought of it like when I was just reading right now. I was like, oh, maybe that's why. Oh my god, dude, this book is so good. It's genuinely making me kind of afraid of deer. Which is like a weird thing to say, and the woods, but like I think I've always had a fear of the woods kind of, but like the atmosphere in this book is so crazy, and it continues to remind me of a lot of my other favorite horror things, but it's very like Stephen King vibes, you know, like I'm just getting those Stephen King vibes. I am really looking forward to finishing this. Like I'm more than halfway through it now, only have about like 260-ish pages left, kind of, which is crazy. Like I could potentially finish this in the next few days if I really want to, and I have a feeling that I'm gonna want to finish it because Spookathon starts a week from today, so I definitely kind of want to finish it before Spookathon, even though this week I was technically only supposed to read up to page 400 if we're sticking to the 200 pages a week thing, but it's just so good I can't put it down. So I'm gonna go out to dinner with my parents right now, and then later tonight I'm probably gonna pick this book back up and try to read more of it, and then I'm gonna take it to work with me probably tomorrow and try to read more of it, and then finish it maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. But I'm so freaking excited about this, and I have decided that I'm definitely gonna be adding like a spoilery part at the end of this, because like I can't even deal with this shit, and it's so hard right now not to like gush about it to you. But I'm loving it. Like if this book continues to be as amazing as it's been these first 400 something pages, like this is probably gonna be a 5-star book for me. It's one of the like creepiest things I've ever read, and I feel like it's the absolute perfect October read. Like I'm so happy I chose this book. Hello. It is like 7 o'clock at night. I just got back from dinner with my parents, and I am planning on jumping back into Imaginary Friend, and I'm so freaking excited. Like I just want to finish this book so I can get some answers. I also got a chocolate shake, which you probably don't care about, but it's great. Jump right back in, chapter 75. Here we go. We made it to part 6. And this is on page 573 now. I'm probably gonna go to bed, to be honest, because I'm tired, but like, whoa, we did it. The ending of part 5 was just okay for me. Like, it was definitely my least favorite section of the book so far. I feel like it's starting to lose its momentum a little bit, so I'm hoping that it is going to end strong. But I'm probably going to be finishing this tomorrow night. I might take it to work with me in the morning, so I only have like this much left. It is October 9th. Sorry for the shitty lighting in here, but I just woke up and I am on page 653 of Imaginary Friend. Last night I stayed up reading like about like 70-ish pages, I want to say, because I think the last time I ended at like 5 something. This book, like the ending is okay so far. Like I feel like the ending ever since page 500, it's really been like losing its momentum, and so I only have 50 pages left. So I'm hoping it ends with a bang, and I'm hoping it ends like to the point where it can salvage it, because like so far this ending, it's making me want to change my rating from a 5 to a 4. It's really just becoming very like repetitive and boring and like not really scary anymore. Hopefully the ending can redeem itself, and I am just gonna sit here right now and finish the book, and then we can do final thoughts. I'm nervous. I'm very happy to say I have just finished Imaginary Friend. Woo! It's completed, it's finished, and I do feel like the ending of this book kind of dropped the ball. I can kind of see what people are saying about how like the ending of this book kind of sucks, and I think that that's kind of a shame, because I mean, I don't know, like I don't read a lot of horror, even though it's a genre that I really love. I just don't read a lot of it, so I don't really know how you expect horror books to end, you know? I really don't know how else this book could have ended, really. I don't know, I still wasn't a huge fan of like the last like 150 pages of this book. Like the last 150 pages of this book really started to drag and really got like so repetitive and very like cliche. It just kind of lost all the like spookiness that the beginning of the book had. At the same time, it's like, how do you rate a book like this? Because the first 500 pages of this book is one of the best things that I've read all year. Even though the ending kind of dropped the ball and the ending kind of sucked, like that doesn't mean that this is a bad book by any means. And I still feel like I would give this like 4
to 4.5 stars. Like, I still loved it so much, you know, and it's still something that I would highly recommend, because I feel like it's kind of like, you know, like the show Dexter. Like, Dexter is still one of my favorite shows of all time, even though that last season fucking sucked. Like, that last season was a fucking joke, but I still think Dexter is one of my favorite shows of all time because of all the other content in the show, you know? And I feel like that about this book. Like, I love the first 500 pages so much. Like, the first 500 pages were easily a 5-star book for me, and then the last, like, 150 pages or so just kind of dropped the ball for the rest of the book. But it kind of reminded me of, like, the ending of, like, Recursion by Blake Crouch, which is, like, another one of my favorite books of the year, but I feel like that book also kind of dropped the ball at the end. So it's like, I don't have a huge problem with books dropping the ball at the end, as long as most of it is really great. Like, I don't know, like, I still get disappointed by it, but it's not gonna, like, make that book not a favorite for me, you know what I mean? Overall, really loved this. I would definitely give this 4 out of 5 stars, and me and Jacqueline were just messaging this morning, and we decided that we want to do a YouTube live show for this book, which is going to be our first live show that we're going to be doing on YouTube. So I don't know exactly when that's going to be, because our schedules are so crazy and different, and so we're just going to have to figure out a time, like, during that week. But it's probably going to be, I'm assuming, like, within the last week of October. That's what we're aiming for. Be on the lookout for that. I'll probably announce it on my Instagram and maybe on, like, a YouTube community post once we actually know the date and time that it's going to be happening. Our schedules are so up in the air, like, we just don't really know. Like, we can't plan that far ahead at the moment. But I do still want to talk to you about some of the spoilery things about this book that I really loved, and some of the issues that I had at the end of this. If you don't want to be spoiled, then this is goodbye. And if you do want some spoilery discussion about this book, then stick around. And let me know if you are planning on picking up this book, if you haven't read it yet. Hello again. So it's been a couple of hours and I've kind of had time to really, like, think about my thoughts on Imaginary Friend, and I just kind of wanted to go over some of, like, my spoilery thoughts about this book with you. So this book definitely, like, as I said previously in this video, it reminded me a lot of The Shining, and, like, what I meant when I said that is that it reminded me a lot of The Shining because of all of those scenes of, like, Christopher being able to, like, understand people, or, like, he can kind of, like, read their minds in a way, which I thought was really interesting. And I feel like that's exactly how it works in the movie The Shining. Like, that thing that the little boy has is called The Shining, and he can, like, know things about people, right? Like, it just reminded me a lot of that. And also because of the use of the number 217 in this book, like, when all the characters would, like, wake up at 2:17 a.m. every night, and then, like, when they were in the hospital, they were in room 217. Like, the repeated use of, like, a certain number is also very, like, The Shining to me, because of, like, the hotel room with, like, the room number. I don't remember what the number was in The Shining, but, like, it just totally reminded me of that. And then it also kind of reminded me of Stranger Things because of the way that this door to the treehouse was like this portal to, like, the imaginary world, right? And it kind of reminded me of, like, the Upside Down in Stranger Things, and how there would be, like, the portal. I'm pretty sure the portal was in a tree also for the first season of Stranger Things. I thought it was really interesting, though, how in this book, like, he goes missing for 6 days, and then when he comes back, he's, like, an instant genius. Like, that was so cool, because in the beginning, you know, he had, like, really bad dyslexia, and he kind of had some, like, learning disabilities, and then when he came back from being missing for that long, he was, like, a genius, and his math test gave them the numbers for, like, winning the lottery. Like, there was just some weird shit going on that was so cool to read about. And I loved how, like, creepy it would be when he would get these, like, really severe headaches unless he was building the treehouse. Like, the voices or whatever were always telling him to, like, finish building the treehouse, because he didn't know that he was building a portal that was going to take him, like, to this imaginary world, right? Like, it was so cool. I love the first big plot twist in this book is on page 181, when we find out that Ambrose, which is the elderly man that has clouds in his eyes, like, he has the cataracts, we find out that he was the older brother of the little boy David that went missing in the 1950s. That was really freaking cool, and I loved that, like, creepy story that this book was revolving around, about, like, that little boy David who was, like, buried alive, and they finally found his bones, and, like, he had gone off into the woods in the middle of the night because he thought he heard a baby crying. Like, oh my god, it was so creepy. I feel like this book really started to pick up for me around, like, the 150 page mark. Like, it definitely had a slow start. Like, I wasn't really invested in the beginning, and I was like, oh god. But then once it picked up to like page like 100 or 150, like that's when this book really took off for me and I got obsessed with it. Like from page like 150 to like 500, like that was some of my favorite fucking horror shit that I've ever read in my life. I really love too the use of the deer in this book. Like the deer really freaked me out because like the deer were basically trying to keep people from like leaving the town. So anytime somebody would be trying to leave the town, the deer would like crash into the car, or like the deer would just be like watching people because they were watching for the hissing lady. Just all that like imagery of like the deer slowly like walking towards people and like kind of watching them like really freaked me out. And just like all like some of the scenery in this book, like some of the scenes just really like stuck with me as something that was really scary. Like that scene when the freaking cartoon just starts talking to Christopher, like the little bad cat cartoon, like that was so creepy and it reminded me so much of It by Stephen King, like when Pennywise like starts talking to them from the TV. And also that scene when he's reading the Frankenstein book in the library and then like David starts talking to him through the book, like in the letters and stuff. Like that was really cool. That was really creepy. And some of the like imagery in this book of the people with like the mailbox people or whatever they called them, with like they had like their mouths were like sewn shut and their eyes had like zippers or something. Like it was so creepy. I also really loved the whole section when Ambrose found David's diary from like when he was a kid. I thought that was so fascinating because then that's when you start to realize like, oh my gosh, like the same exact thing that happened to David is happening to Christopher. So you're trying to figure out kind of like what happened to David exactly. Like I know he got like buried alive or whatever in the real world, but it's like what exactly happened to him in this imaginary world. Oh my gosh, that scene though when the mother, like when Kate, like Christopher's mother, finally realizes that her kid might be like fucking possessed or something. Like she goes down into the basement and she sees him like talking to himself and she's like, who are you talking to? And he's like, oh, this is my friend the nice man. Like bitch, what the fuck? Like I would be so fucking scared if I was her. And then he like convinces her that they have to leave because like the hissing lady is like gonna kill them all on Christmas Day. Oh my gosh, that plot twist, like my favorite moment in this whole book when I was the most shook was on page 378. It was like the very end of part 4 when they're like leaving the town and Mary Catherine also happens to be leaving the town at the same time, and then in order to like she's about to like hit a deer, so in order to miss the deer she swerves out of the way and hits Christopher in the passenger seat with his mom going like 120 miles per hour, and of course it happens at exactly 2:17 a.m. which was also like weird. Almost kills Christopher, kind of like he goes into like a coma from that point, like he's brain dead basically, and like that shit was so intense. I feel like the writing there was just so good because you're going back and forth between Mary Catherine and Christopher and you're like, what is gonna happen? And then boom, they just collide at 2:17 a.m. like that was just so fucking cool. And like really great writing on Stephen Chbosky's part. Like I just thought that was amazing. I feel like where this book started to kind of become a little less interesting for me though is near the parts where it really started to get like heavily religious, like very like heavily religious, which is not something that I was expecting because they keep bringing up this message of like God is a murderer. So there was this part like earlier on in the book when she said like she doesn't think there's ever been a parent who has abused their kids that hasn't been abused themselves, and she was like, I want to know who's the first person to do that, and then their response was like the answer is God. It really started to turn into this kind of like religious metaphor, which was like okay, but it's just not really where I was expecting the book to go. Because then basically you start to realize that the imaginary world is probably hell and Christopher is playing God, like because he knows everything about everyone, and like it makes sense. Like that's why he's such a genius and why he's so smart is because he's God. And then you realize that the nice man is actually the devil. That plot twist was like okay, but I was like, really? Like did that guy's name have to be the nice man and then he turned out to be the devil? Like it just seemed so kind of like on the nose and obvious to me and kind of cliche. But one plot twist towards the end that I did not see coming is that the hissing lady was actually like the good one, and she was like trying to warn him about the nice man the whole time. Like she wasn't trying to kill him, but she was trying to warn him to like stay away from the nice man. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then it's revealed like really like towards the end of this book that the hissing lady is actually Eve from like Adam and Eve, which is like, what? It's interesting, but I feel like I'd have to reflect back on that to like really understand that plot twist, because I was like, wait, what? And like maybe she was trapped in this imaginary world which is hell for her sins of like biting the apple or whatever. The last 100 to 150 pages of this book, like from around page 550 until the end, it just got so dramatic and so cheesy, and it kind of like ruined all the like creepy spookiness of the beginning of this book, because we spend so much time in hell, or like the imaginary world, at the end of this book, and a lot of it is just like the nice man being like, do this or I'm gonna kill everyone, and then they're all like, no, don't do that, oh my god, no, and then Christopher's just like bringing everybody back to life with his like god powers, and it's just this like endless cycle of the same shit over and over again, and it was just so cheesy. Like, the ending was just so freaking cheesy. And then at the very end of the book, it's like they trap the nice man in like hell or whatever, and they burn down the portal so nobody can go back there. And then it's like the nice man is still trying to like whisper in the people's ears like to do bad things, but they just ignore him now because they know that it's him, and they just go about living their happy lives. And then we find out at the very end of the book that Mary Catherine is pregnant, and like they were able to save the baby even though she got in that bad car accident, and they said, you are having a son. And that's how the book ends. So it's like, okay, we know Mary Catherine is basically like the Virgin Mary of this book, and I guess she's giving birth to like Jesus. I don't know, I feel like this book was so good without the use of like the heavy religious metaphors. Like, I feel like once it got really like bogged down by the like religious metaphors, like I started to like lose interest in it, just because like I'm not a religious person, and like religious stories like that, like I didn't realize it was gonna end up being so religious towards the end, and I feel like that kind of like ruined the suspense of it and the creepiness of it. But at the same time, like I don't read like a shit ton of horror, so it's like I don't really know how else this book could have ended. But gosh, dude, like the beginning of this just had some of the best horror that I've ever read. Like, I was genuinely so creeped out. And when me and Jacqueline were talking about it, we were like, how is this main character only 7 years old? Because he reads like he's so smart, and like he's so much older, and like I would have definitely pegged this character and his little group of friends to be like closer to like 12 or 13. But then after we were talking about it, I realized like, you know, he probably is intentionally written to sound a lot smarter, because since he came back from being lost, and like in the beginning he definitely did read like a 7-year-old, but then after he came back from being in the woods, he sounded so much older, which I think was intentional, because the author wanted to show you like how smart he had gotten. I just found this book to be really interesting, and I still think like after spending some more time thinking about it that I'm gonna end up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And it was really good. Like, I would still highly recommend this, even though the ending isn't great. Like, I would just maybe know going into the book that the ending isn't great, but like it didn't really ruin my enjoyment of the book overall though, just because I felt like the beginning was so fun. I really do love, though, the relationship between Christopher and his mom, Kate, in this book. Like, they were just so freaking sweet. He's such a sweet and sensitive, like, little boy. Like, he just really, like, cares about his mom, and he just really wants her to be happy. I also loved the romantic relationship that kind of formed between his mom, Kate, and the sheriff of the town. Like, they were also really cute. God, some of those scenes were so creepy with, like, the sheriff and the girl with the painted nails or whatever. Like, I don't know what the hell happened there, but he kept having these like flashbacks of her, and it was just like really creepy. And I also love the character Ambrose and his like love for his little brother David, and how he kind of like wishes he could have protected him. Like, that story was also really sweet, and I really enjoyed those characters as well. But wow, there was just a lot going on in this book. Like, I was so shook by all of those scenes of like Miss Henderson like killing her husband, like, and I feel like she was almost like possessed by the devil. Like, I mean, I guess she kind of was, right? But she like went in there and killed all the police officers and like let all the criminals out of the jail, and like she was just like losing her shit. This book was just one wild ride. I really enjoyed it though. Like, I had a lot of fun reading this book, and I'm so glad I decided to pick it up this month. But wow, Stephen Chbosky is just so freaking great. Like, The Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite books of all time, and this is such a different style for him. Like, I know in the beginning of this, he actually does say that it was very much inspired by Stephen King, which I can definitely see, but it's so cool because he also said in the acknowledgments at the beginning of this that he said he wanted to acknowledge Emma Watson, who inspired the ending of the Perks of Being a Wallflower set. So Emma Watson inspired this book in some way? Like, that's pretty cool. I love too that Blake Crouch blurbed this book on the back, and he says, "Imaginary friend reminded me of discovering a classic Stephen King novel from 2 decades ago," which I totally feel like is true, because this book totally reminded me of like The Shining and It and all these like classic Stephen King horrors. So like I totally agree with that, and I do think that this book felt like discovering like old classic Stephen King. I will be doing that full live show with Jacqueline towards the end of the month, which should be very fun. But if you've read this book, then like let me know what your thoughts are on it. Thank you so much for watching this super long video, and yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye!